What's up, nerds? Welcome back. Today, I'm not doing a comic book review, not that I don't have comic books to review, I just kind of wanted to talk about something else real quick. So before I even get started with this video, I'm just going to let you know, if you haven't started watching the Peacemaker show, I may possibly end up spoiling something for you here, or maybe a few things. So if that's a problem for you, you're going to want to stop this video now, go watch it, and then come back. If you don't care, then let's get ready to talk about this show. Now, I want to start this video off by saying that I do like the show. I'm not going to lie about that. I'm more than likely going to be watching it all the way through to the end. There are some things to be enjoyed in there, and there are some things that just annoy me. As with so many other things, like there are things that I see that, will elicit a chuckle from me. I'm not going to say that I sit there stone-faced and I don't find anything funny. I do. I find some of the humor funny. But there's a lot in there that just kind of bothers me, and it seems to be part of an ongoing trend with superhero movies and shows lately, in that a lot of it is just the heroes and the costume characters in general don't often tend to take things seriously enough. It almost seems like they've been placed into a movie or a show that isn't even remotely related to them, because all of the other characters, the side characters, the background characters, will be taking things and playing things very straight. And then it seems like the costumed characters are just in their own little world. And that to me just comes across as very jarring. It doesn't really feel... I'm also just tired in general of like superheroes acting like goofballs. You know what I mean? Like they tend to make jokes all the time about everything. And I get it. You're a superhero. Maybe things aren't always as serious to you. The stakes may not always be the same. Whatever. But I need them to at least attempt to show that they're playing it straight. Like, I'm tired of the comic book characters acting weird, just being jokes. They're almost parodies of themselves, and I'm like, I want to watch a superhero movie that's a straight up superhero movie or a show. Same thing. Like, I want the characters to actually act, heroic and not just be basically losers except for when they're fighting the villain, because that's basically what we're getting from most stuff nowadays. It's like, if they aren't in the suit doing their thing, well, they're just quirky, awkward, socially inept weirdos. And then when they're in the suit, that's when they're doing all the cool stuff. And it's like, but why would I look up to that person when you've spent about 75% of the time when they're not in costume showing us that all they are is just a walking goofball? Why would I want to watch that character spend, the 5 minutes doing all kinds of badass stuff? It doesn't translate. It doesn't work for me, But then again, that could just be me. And overall, that kind of goes into another problem that I've had with a lot of like properties right now, with it be movies or TV shows. The characters, they don't seem to fit into the world. The characterizations. The one that I have the most problem with is Vigilante. I don't get me wrong, the costume looks great. The costume looks spot on accurate. But when it comes to the way that he acts, the way that he talks, it just doesn't feel like Vigilante even a little bit. Nothing against the actor. He's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. And we've started to see, like in this latest episode, where he has a little bit of something going on. Like he has a haunted past because apparently he's Peacemaker's brother, which was something else that kind of annoyed me. And then especially because I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be Peacemaker's older brother. So I don't know what that's... How are we supposed to believe that that actor is younger than John Cena? He damn sure doesn't look like it. But anyway, that's just a completely separate issue. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, they have him acting super weird and awkward a lot of the time, and then it's supposed to be kind of explained away as like, well, he's that way because he had such a dark past. And I get it. That is something that tends to happen. That's why you have a lot of like comedians and like comedic actors who really had very hard lives coming up, and so they escaped and just basically trying to be funny and live like a comedic life. That is something that definitely happens. I don't really need to see that in a superhero thing, though. You know what I mean? Like, I want him to just be like a badass who, he's skilled because he wants to be skilled, not because he has some sort of like dark past and this is his way of just trying to like escape from it and kind of like pretend like it doesn't happen, compartmentalizing basically. So you have that, and then I've seen some people complain about some of the other stuff. I don't really think that some of the criticisms that I've seen are fair though. Like I saw some people talking about the scene where I can't remember her name, the blonde girl, where she was like fighting in the bar with the guys, and they're like, "Oh yeah, because you know this like 110-pound woman would be able to like you know, basically subdue this big strong guy." I was like, okay, for one, let's just kind of go through it. Let's kind of go through this because I feel like some people are forgetting some of the things here. Number one, we're watching a superhero comic book show. So on some level, you're going to have a slightly higher suspension of disbelief than if you were watching, say, James Bond. You know what I mean? Because with James Bond, yes, there's still a lot of like fantastical action and things like that, unrealistic science that goes into these movies, but at the same time, that's still very much more grounded in an actual world. Whereas with something like this, we're in a world where people can fly, where people can shoot lasers out of their eyes. Like, there's all kinds of stuff. So you have to have a slightly higher suspension of disbelief. Otherwise, we're never going to have any female superheroes, or at least like female vigilantes. It's never going to happen if you're always going to be looking at it as like, well, this chick is only like 110 pounds. She would never be able to beat any man. I'm like, okay, it's a superhero thing. Remember when we read comics and we see someone like Black Widow and shit doing stuff like that? Like, kind of have that same type of mentality when you're coming into this. If you believe Black Widow can kick ass, well, then this blonde chick probably can too, because apparently she's very highly trained. So, I mean, at some point, you kind of have to just accept that. And that's what I'm saying. I feel like some people are kind of forgetting we're watching a superhero property. Kind of be willing to have that suspension of disbelief. But that's also why I'm saying it doesn't really balance out when you have her acting like that, but then you have like Peacemaker just acting like a complete jackass so often. Just completely weird in the way that he acts, basically childish in many ways, like he's stuck in his past. And I get it, he's still haunted by some of his own stuff too. But like I said, that's what they always go to. Well, they had something like messed up happen to them in the past, so that's why they act completely inept and awkward in any social interaction now, just because they use humor to try and cover up. Otherwise, they'd probably be crying all the time. I'm like, that doesn't work for me. It doesn't work in any kind of way. And that's why I have that issue with it. Another one that I saw people having a problem with was that they had the, I can't remember the black girl's name either, but she's Amanda Waller's daughter or whatever. And they're like, of course, she's like, why did she have to be a lesbian? I'm like, okay, why is that a problem? Like, let's not forget, like, she hasn't done anything really all that substantial just yet. Like, yeah, she's kind of like the plant, she's the mole on the team or whatever, but they haven't had her doing much of anything like that would be outside the realm of possibility. So far, she's been a driver. She's kind of like information, you know what I mean? She's kind of like, she always has a plan or something like that. We haven't seen her doing anything where she's having to do like flips and stuff, and they're having her CGI, like having her do cartwheels and shit. Like, all we've seen her do is normal type of stuff that would definitely fit in with like her type of character. Now, you could argue, why would they have someone, that large in the show or in this like group or whatever? I mean, if you want to argue that, you could, but at the same time, like I said, she's mostly been like a driver and just kind of just other stuff. She seems to be a little bit more like helping with the planning of missions and stuff like that. So that's where I'm like, I don't really see that as that much of an issue. And then for people to be saying like, well, but why did she have to be a lesbian? I mean, lesbians do exist. I mean, it's not that big of a plot point, you know what I mean? Only for her, and every so often, whenever it just comes to like the safety of like her partner or whatever, because she wants to like take her around with her. I mean, that's kind of true to life. Lesbians tend to stick together. I mean, and so do gay guys. It is what it is, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't see why people are having an issue with it. Like, she hasn't been there just like bitching about like, well, it's so hard for me to be a lesbian in society or anything. She's a lesbian. They aren't making any more of an issue out of that than that she's a lesbian and she worries about the safety of her partner. Like, she's not doing all of these like talking points or anything like that. So I don't know why people are having an issue with that. And that's kind of where I have a little bit of an issue with a lot of what's been done and a lot of the crying that tends to come from the community, the alphabet mafia that I call them. Because this is what happens when you do all of that and you're constantly bitching and you make yourselves into some sort of like loudmouth. then all of a sudden, anytime someone sees a gay character or a lesbian character, they're automatically just like, oh, great, there's a lesbian. You know what I mean? Like, there's a gay character, great. They're probably going to end up preaching and lecturing each other, like other people about, their sexuality and stuff like that. And it's like, no, that hasn't happened yet. And you need to actually be willing to give it a chance. Don't automatically turn into the person that they already assume you're going to be, because you're not helping your case. And I know that a lot of people who are complaining about it would automatically turn around and say, but I don't have a problem with gay people. But, okay, you're not really helping yourself when you're complaining about this stuff. Wait until they actually validate what you're saying. Don't just look at it and say like, oh, I found out she's a lesbian. Of course they have a lesbian in the show. Who cares? It's not a big plot point. It's not something that comes up all that often. Let it go. Seriously, get over it. Like, it's got nothing to do with anything, and it's not a very big part of the show. So, I mean, that's one of the things that I saw in there, and I was like, yeah, I don't know why people are complaining about this. Like, the character hasn't been all that instrumental in a whole lot of stuff. I mean, I don't really know where that's coming from. So it is what it is, but that's something that needs to be left alone. That's what I'm saying. Like, there are some things that I feel like some people are being a little bit unfair about, and then there are problems that I legitimately see that I don't really see too many people talking about. Granted, I have seen some people raise some of the same issues that I have, like I said, with characterizations, characters not really taking things seriously. Like, there have been people who have called that out too, and they don't really like it either. So, I mean, it's one of those things that I've noticed too. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I do like the overarching story, with this whole thing with the butterflies or whatever. All right, cool. I wasn't really sure how to feel about Eagly right at first, but Eagly has kind of won me over. I'm not going to lie. It's kind of cute. But again, that's another thing that's like, normally something like that would annoy me, but Eagly is used sparingly. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, Eagly isn't always coming into every scene and a part of everything. It's just every so often it comes in, kind of a little non sequitur or something to kind of like, catch you off guard a little bit, add a little levity. Nothing wrong with that. But one thing that there is absolutely something wrong with, and it boggles my mind how many people do not have this issue, how many people have the exact opposite opinion of mine. But the intro to this show is the worst thing I have ever seen in my fucking life. And the reason why I say it's so surprising me is because I've seen so many people who are like, yo, that intro was amazing. Like, I watched it 4 or 5 times. I watched it on every episode. I'm like, okay, you need to put the crack pipe down, baby, because something's wrong. That is not a good intro. It's not. All of the characters doing this choreographed dance to this weird-ass rock song, I'm like, God, make it fucking stop. I only watched it once. And even while I was watching it that one time, I wanted to put a bullet through my head. Because I was like, why did anybody think this was a good way to start this show? And that's why I'm saying, when you have an intro like that, it already kind of tells me what type of thing I'm walking into. Because it already feels like they aren't even taking the show seriously. And they're letting you know that from the intro. Where they have the character Peacemaker in his costume dancing around to this choreograph, and it does not look good at all. It's just, that's what I'm saying. It feels like the weirdest type of thing. Like, they're trying to put so many elements together, and I get it. It's James Gunn. It's the type of thing that he does. He started it with Guardians of the Galaxy, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm tired of that. It worked okay for Guardians of the Galaxy. Don't get me wrong. I like that film franchise. But where I'm starting to see more and more properties trying to adapt that approach to superheroes. And it started, like I said, with Guardians of the Galaxy, except it was done pretty well there. And then it was carried over into like Thor Ragnarok, where it was like, well, now the character is actually acting more comedic than he was serious. And I get it. Most people hate Thor the Dark World. I don't hate it as much as like most people do. But if you had me pick which one I wanted to watch, Thor Ragnarok or Thor 2 The Dark World, I would watch The Dark World. Because I'm tired of Ragnarok. I really am. Like, this characterization of Thor has gone all the way off the scale. And that's where I'm saying, like, that's what I'm starting to see over here at DC, too. Where we're starting to just have characters just, for no reason, acting weird. Acting just, like I said, like goofballs. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I really don't like it. I might be alone in that. But I just want to see these properties taken not so much seriously. I'm not saying we have to go full Zack Snyder and make it a grim, dark type of world or something like that. But I definitely do want to see it played out a little bit more like straight action, like the comic books. You know what I mean? When you read the comics, well, not the modern comics, the way that the ones that are coming out recently, you get a lot of that same type of crap. And that's what I'm saying. I feel like that's where the movies and the shows have started to influence the comics. But if you read some of the stuff that were reading when we were younger, the late 80s, the early 90s, even the early 2000s, the characters, everything was treated very straight. You know what I mean? Like it was still, yeah, there were moments of levity, there were moments of, comedy, even in the comics, but they still acted like heroes. It was still about, them trying to be heroic. And you didn't really have them acting like straight up losers and just, like I said, socially inept when they were out of costume. If you did, it was maybe one or two characters who had that as their personality, but the majority of them were just regular people. When they weren't in costume, they had regular lives, they acted normal like everybody else. But nowadays, it seems like any character who wears a costume, if it's in a movie or a show, if they're out of costume, it's almost like they have a mental disease or something. Like they have something wrong with them. Somehow that they're just not able to interact with other people. I would make the assumption that almost all of them are somewhere on the spectrum. You know what I mean? All of them have something going on with them. And I need that trend to stop because it's getting really annoying and it's starting to get over the top and I'm getting really tired of it. It makes even me not want to watch these shows because I'm like, what's the point? Seriously, what's the point? Why would I bother watching these complete goofballs who 75% of the time they're just acting completely awkward, but then there's that 25% of the time when it's like 5 minutes of them in costume actually acting like a hero, and that's usually just for the fight, and then immediately as soon as the fight is over, they're back to just being weird again. I'm like, can y'all ever just play this out as just the heroes all the way through, like a comic book? Like I said, not like the majority of the comics that are coming out right now, like a lot of the ones that we grew up with that made all of us love comics, the comics that they wanted to adapt into movies and shows. Can y'all make it more like that and less like the shit that's coming out today? Because it needs to go the other way around. It's become cyclical at this point. The movies and shows have influenced the comics, and now the modern comics are influencing the shows and movies, and I'm like, it needs to end. That needs to stop. So I kind of ranted a little bit more than I meant to on this particular video talking about this show. But like I said, overall, I'm not trying to make it seem like I hate the show because I definitely don't. I actually do like it. I think it has a lot of potential. There are some things in there that I'm not liking what I'm seeing. They're annoying the crap out of me. And I'm hoping that they will either be tempered or end it altogether by the end. But I don't have too high of hopes because like I said, it's James Gunn. He tends to go for this type of thing. It's just kind of his style when it comes to directing. So we'll see what ends up coming from it, but yeah, I think that's all I can say about that for right now. If I have any further thoughts, I might do another video when we get more episodes. As of right now, I've only watched, the first 4? Because they put out the first 3, and then I watched the new one yesterday. So yeah, I've only seen that so far. So we'll see how it develops, and like I said, I may end up making another video to kind of talk more as it continues to develop, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, if anybody out there has been watching the show, even if you haven't, just feel free to let me know your thoughts. And I mean, if you have seen the show and you agree with me, great. If you have seen the show and you don't agree with me, that's fine too. I'm not looking for anybody to agree with me. I just like to put my thoughts out here to try and gauge a reaction, see where y'all are at with it. Like I said, I apparently was somewhat in the minority with not liking that intro. There were a lot of people who do like it, and I cannot even fathom why that would be. But if y'all like it, y'all like it. That's fine. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I'm not telling anybody they're wrong for liking something. Nothing wrong with it at all. But anyway, yeah, that's going to do it for me here, guys. So if you are done here, then if you like the video, make sure that you like the video. Make sure you're subscribed and you hit the notification bell. You know, all of the standard legal fare. And if you're done here, then go and read a book. And if not, then I'll see you on my next video.